So good evening, welcome to the Staten Island Museum. My name is Riley Edergenoso, and I am the Director of Curatorial Affairs and Programs. We're so happy you could join us for tonight's Artist Talk, supported by the Staten Island Advance, SI Live. Arlette Cepeda is an artist featured in the exhibition Yes and, right upstairs. Her artwork amplifies details that go unnoticed and creates a narrative based on personal experiences. Community engagement and accessibility are at the heart of her work and align with her professional goals as an administrator. Please welcome Arlette Cepeda.
Thank you so much, Ray. Hello and good evening. Hola, buenas noches. Tonight we're going to do this presentation in two languages, in Spanish and English. Vamos a hacer una presentación bilingüe en español e inglés. Algunas de los slides van a estar en inglés y otros en español. Some of them are going to be in English and some in Spanish, so I'm going to speak the opposite language. So if you want to follow, just look at the slide or then listen to me so that we can have unified understanding. Si no entienden, voy a poner una lengua en una y voy a hablar en la otra y viceversa. Y vamos a alternar para ser equitativos. All right, so this one's on English, so I'm going to speak in Spanish. As I mentioned, como mencioné, mi nombre es Arlette Cepeda, yo soy una artista visual de la comunidad. I'm a visual artist from the community. Y esta noche vamos a hablar un poco sobre mi práctica creativa y sobre la importancia de la representación en el arte. And tonight we're going to talk a little bit about my creative practice and the importance of representation in the art world. Ok, bueno, entonces lo puse en inglés porque quería empezar en español. Creo que es la primera, si no me equivoco, conversatorio bilingüe. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first bilingual artist talk, so muy honrada. Thank you so much, and we hope that there are more. Esperamos que haya más y en diferentes lenguas también, and in different languages, of course. So we hope that there are more of them. Okay, so vamos a ver los puntos con que yo manejo mi práctica creativa. La primera es identificar un asunto o un tema que yo piense que sea importante, que yo quiera comunicar, something important, present. Lo segundo es cómo yo involucro la comunidad en el proceso de seleccionar la temática o las cosas que queremos elevar. How do I engage the community in the pieces to select the theme and really emphasize in the points we want to put across? El otro es capturar los detalles y las esencias, ya luego de involucrar la comunidad, de cómo yo luego me enfoco en lo que se llama el arte, la práctica, en este caso la fotografía, y pienso en el marco y en las imágenes que ya quiero desarrollar. The next piece is to just capture the details. It's like a little bit more technical. It's about taking photos and what's the imagery going to look like. Y por supuesto, al final es cómo yo comparto el producto final, ¿right? Cómo la comunidad se integra en este producto que hemos logrado juntos. So the idea is how do you make art accessible for the people through the creation process, right? At the end, the final product. So ese es mi proceso de cómo yo pienso una obra, la trabajo, involucro la comunidad y termino con un producto final y vuelvo y lo entrego a la comunidad. So that's just in a few points my process. I'm going to talk a little more detail in the next slide. Y por supuesto la importancia de la representación. Estos son unos puntos que voy a discutir con mayor detalle. Es la oportunidad, la validación, la inclusión, la pertenencia y ejemplos a seguir. And I just read the bullet points on the importance. I'm going to go in depth on both of these pieces of my creative process. Estos son los puntos que hemos visto, entonces voy a entrar con más detalle en las próximas pantallas. Okay? So, para hablar un poco del proceso creativo, yo me pregunto algunas cosas. Pregunto qué me gustaría que la gente supiera sobre mi comunidad, cómo puedo contribuir a elevar las voces de la comunidad. Esa es una parte del proceso de identificar el tema o el asunto a exponer. And I'm reading this part over here. If you want to follow, I'm just identifying the process through some questioning. Y luego el involucrar la comunidad. ¿Cuál es la mejor manera de traer a la comunidad en el proceso? ¿Cómo yo lo hago de una manera respetuosa, donde ellos pueden sentirse que contribuyen a la idea final, right? So I ask a little bit about how can I do this process in a respectful way, that they feel that they are contributing to the final idea in a respectful way and in a way that people can feel seen and heard, right? Not used. Esa es la idea que yo principalmente trato de tener en mente cuando involucro la comunidad, de que es una manera respetuosa, donde yo valoro su opinión y su contribución. So when I'm doing this, I really want to be mindful of that process, where I respect the opinion of the community and I'm being mindful of my place and their place, right? And they are not feeling used in the process. I think that's key, because sometimes we say we involve the community, but really sometimes use them instead, not make them an integral part of the process. Y eso es lo que busco. Okay. Luego, it's interesting. I thought it was in English, but then I see it is in Spanish. I'm gonna switch. So I'm in this part. So to capture the details, that was how Riley started describing my process, right? I love details. I think the details are the things that make us humans, that make us unique, but also that can tell a story without saying too much. Me encantan los detalles. Creo que los detalles son la esencia de quienes somos, de cómo llegamos ahí, de que cuentan una historia sin tener que dar mucha información. Esos detalles son a veces la esencia de una temática. Sometimes the details are the essence of a theme or an issue. Okay, so then after that, you know, again, we go back to the technical piece. How do I frame that in my picture frame? How do I bring the viewer into it and make them connect to the subject and to the issue, and maybe see a little bit of themselves on it or recognize something bigger? Luego me voy a la parte técnica de cómo hago la foto en un marco y hago que la gente se conecte con la historia, con lo que estoy tratando de comunicar, y que tal vez pueda encontrar un poco de sí mismo en la obra. Y, of course, por supuesto, at the end, it's how do I make the artwork accessible, right? How do I make the community be comfortable to come in and see the results and want to come in and feel that they have a part of it, right? That they were able to contribute to that. And I just want to acknowledge that one of my beautiful muses is in the room. Quiero decir que una de mis musas está aquí en el aula, y quería decirle, Alejandra Morán es una de mis musas, y gracias por venir. And this is a perfect example of what I'm trying to say, right? How does the community feel that they are part of this story, right? That they want to be here, and can they access it? Is it a place that they can reach? Is it a place that they feel comfortable coming to, right? So, ese proceso para mí es muy importante de pensar cómo la comunidad va a llegar a donde está la obra y sentirse reconocida a través de la obra y también como colaborador del producto final. Okay, so then we come to, we come to representation. Aquí está en español, voy a hablar en inglés y así voy a entrar las partes que no están escritas. So representation is important because, first of all, I always say you have to define the subject that you're trying to explain. By definition, it's the action of speaking or acting on behalf of someone or state, or the state of the being so represented. Let me say that again because I cut myself. It's the action of speaking or acting on behalf of someone or the state of being so represented, or the description or portrayal of someone or something in a particular way or as being of a certain nature. So this is how I'm broadly defining representation in this context. Of course, representation in different contexts might mean a little more, but in general, it's like, you know, you can see yourself in this, right? You're being represented because there's some kind of likeness to you. And then it is important because when you see yourself, this could translate into feelings of opportunity or validation, like I mentioned here, right? An inclusion or of belonging, or you are a model to follow. I was there, right? You can see yourself in this space. Therefore, I belong. Voy a añadir un poco en español. Es importante porque ofrece la oportunidad de sentirse incluido, de sentirse validado, de que hay un sentido de pertenencia, de que las personas pueden verte como un ejemplo a seguir, y también te da la inspiración de tú también poder hacer algo igual. All right. Entonces, con esa idea, with that idea in mind, I present you one of the first photos that are upstairs in the exhibit, Yes, and. Con esta idea les presento una de las fotos que están en la exhibición de CE. Y la idea de esta imagen es un momento muy íntimo entre una abuela y una niña. The idea between this is it's the very intimate moment between a grandmother and a child. It's nothing out of the ordinary, right? But these kinds of images are not commonly found in places like this. Estas imágenes no son comúnmente encontradas en espacios como estos. So, por elevar este momento como algo valioso que debe ser incluido en un espacio así, entonces cambiamos la dinámica. Because we bring it into this space, we change the dynamics, we change the conversation. Cambiamos la conversación, right? And sometimes we could question those that might not think that this is valuable, right? Entonces, podemos hacer que alguien se cuestione cuando ellos piensan que esto no es valioso, al verlo en un espacio como esto. To see it in a space like this, right? It changes the dynamic of power and validation, right? De poder y validación, and when I mean power, I don't mean in terms of structure, but in terms of how can I say, ¿cómo lo digo? Cuando hablo de poder, no estoy hablando de poder de estructural, pero podemos hablar de grupos marginados, right? We can talk about marginalized groups, right? So when you talk about a marginalized group represented in a space where they're typically not represented, then you're changing the power. And that's what I mean by power. Esa es una idea de lo que quería decir. Además de la fotografía en un espacio como este, besides the photograph in a space like this, there's a story behind this that makes it more powerful. And what I mean by that is that this photo came out of a project called Family Portraits. Esta foto salió de un proyecto llamado Retratos de Familia. Y creo que la historia es lo que la hace también más fuerte. There's always a story behind the photo that validates that narrative, que valida la narrativa que queremos demostrar. And this came out after COVID because people were dying and they did not have a photo of their loved one. Esto salió después de COVID porque no tenían fotos de sus seres queridos que se estaban muriendo, right? Y la idea es que un retrato familiar, the idea is that a family portrait is something that's very special and unique, you know, like a heirloom that you preserve and you go back to when you're older, right? And many of the American families go to the mall and get their photos taken by a photographer. La idea del retrato familiar es que es algo que tú conservas, que puedes ver a través del tiempo, que las familias americanas usualmente van al mall y se toman una foto con un fotógrafo y es muy profesional, but those photos are expensive. And a lot of our families, the photos were not a priority in COVID. Photos is not a priority. Right? You're not going to go to the mall to take a family picture after COVID. Tú no vas a ir a la tienda a tirarte una foto después del COVID. Las fotos no eran una prioridad. But when you lost that person, the only thing you had to was their photo. Cuando perdías esa persona, lo único que tenías de esa persona era una foto. It was the thing that people held on to, right? Entonces, era la cosa que guardaban. And that's when this became important. It wasn't about the photo per se. It was about capturing that moment with this grandma that could be gone tomorrow, right? Era capturar ese momento con esa abuela que tal vez no podría estar aquí mañana, right? Esa era la idea que estaba detrás de la foto. All right, so I know I'm talking too much, but I'm almost done. And then, of course, this is the photo of my wonderful muse, Alejandra Moran, which comes from another project. It came from Essential Immigrant Stories. And this had to do a lot with people who had to work throughout the pandemic, right? Este proyecto se llama Historia de Inmigrantes Esenciales y tiene mucho que ver con los trabajadores que tuvieron que trabajar durante la pandemia y arriesgar sus vidas. And Alejandra was one of those that, as a business owner, had to go to work, because if you don't go to work, you don't make money, right? So Alejandra era una de esas personas que tuvo que salir a trabajar, right? Que ella es dueña de su propio negocio y si tú no trabajas, pues tú no haces dinero. Entonces es muy importante para ella seguir trabajando, tomándose ese riesgo. It was really important for her to continue to work even though there was some risk, right? But this is, again, this kind of moment, this framing of the mirror, right? Is what kind of brings you into her world. Este marco del espejo es lo que te hace entrar en su mundo y verla más como una persona, humaniza la persona que estás viendo. You humanize the person because you're able to kind of go into her world and connect with that moment. Maybe you were just home on a sofa, chilling and drinking soup, but she was working and taking a risk and being scared because she could die. Tal vez estaba en la casa bebiendo sopa en un sofá, pero ella tenía que salir y tomar riesgo y tener un poco de miedo de enfermarse, right? Entonces, again, this came through a process of interviews. It goes back to the creative practice where I just didn't come up and say, can I take your picture? It was like, let's have a conversation. What were your fears? What were your challenges? But also, what were your opportunities in this moment, right? Very unique in our world. De nuevo, no fue que yo vine y le dije, déjame tomar tu foto así, sino que hubo una conversación, una entrevista donde yo le preguntaba cuáles eran sus retos y las partes más difíciles de esta época, pero también cuáles eran las oportunidades que había encontrado a través de la pandemia. And that connection, right, that brings you closer to your subject. When I finished this project, I was the one who was a better person because of these conversations. I was transformed, right? Después de esas conversaciones, la transformada fui yo. Fue un evento para mí único que cambió mi perspectiva y me hizo sentir más cerca de mi comunidad. It made me feel a lot closer to my community, more empathy and connecting with their humanity and their bravery. And then, and yeah, so that's what I mean by having a story, not just being a picture, but a story of a particular group in our community. Para mí era importante que cada imagen tenga una historia de un grupo en particular de nuestra comunidad. Okay, so this is the effect that I'm hoping that my work has in people. Este es el efecto que quisiera que mi trabajo tuviera en la gente, right? En la comunidad que yo estoy tratando de representar. Es, ella se ve como yo. La gente aprecia la gente como yo, right? También nosotros somos importantes, right? Y si ella puede, entonces yo también puedo, right? Y pues la idea es que la gente se sienta inspirada a crear, a romper barreras y que haya más, porque estamos trayendo nuestro arte en lugares que usualmente no abunda nuestro arte. So the idea is that we bring more of this because we're breaking barriers and bringing our work and our people into spaces that they usually don't. And that I hope that people are inspired to do more of this work in different spaces. It's not just the art, but across the board. And I'm hoping that through these images and through this artwork, others are inspired to do more work like this. Okay, and then this one here is just a recent exhibit I just had last week. It's called Celebrating Places of Belonging, celebrando lugares de pertenencia. Esta apertura pasó la semana pasada, pero sigue en vista en el Pride Center de aquí de Staten Island. Vamos a ver cuándo podemos hacer otra apertura para que la gente pueda ir, porque no está abierto al público todo el tiempo. We're going to try to find out when we can do another viewing because it's not always open to the public. But in the coming weeks, it's probably going to happen. And again, this is part of a larger story about celebrating places where people of color feel welcome and appreciated. Because I believe in celebrating, in coming from an asset-based perspective than a deficit one. And the idea was that these spaces were identified by people from Staten Island that were places of belonging, so we wanted to celebrate them. Esta exhibición estará abierta al público más adelante en una vista privada. De nuevo, es una exhibición que tiene una historia detrás, que celebra lugares donde la gente de color se siente bienvenida y apreciada, de acuerdo a la encuesta que se hizo con personas de Staten Island que reconocieron estos lugares. Y yo parto de un sitio donde hay ¿cómo se llama?, de bonanza y no de déficit, de faltas, y queremos celebrar estos lugares para que tal vez otros se animen en crear más lugares de inclusión. I'm hoping that others will get encouraged through awareness to create more spaces of belonging in Staten Island. And with that, I'm open to questions from the audience. Any questions?
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
So you were talking about your process. The photographs are from different projects where you were also interviewing people and kind of learning their story. Do the interview and then take the photograph, or do you photograph and then interview, or is it like a sort of mixed up process?
That's a good question. Just to translate, dice que en los proyectos, si hago entrevista primero o luego, y luego tomo la fotografía, o primero tomo la fotografía y luego hago la entrevista. First, only one project had the survey component, and it was first the interview and then the pictures. Solamente un proyecto tenía encuestas o entrevista, y era primero en la entrevista y luego la foto. I think the way I was able to connect to the story was through the talking, right? How do I represent what you just told me, right? That moved me to the ground, that told me, how you've been able to survive, right? This, pandemic. So creo que la entrevista y esa conexión con la persona es lo que me hizo conectar con su necesidad, con su historia, y que yo pude, bienvenida, que yo pude hacer estas fotos. All right. Otra pregunta. Yes.
Obviously, including more people to make more people happy, to have people feel heard is a good thing. So why are there people out there who seem to not want this or even want the opposite?
That is a good question. Dice que su pregunta es que, por supuesto, incluir más personas es una cosa buena que hacer. ¿Y por qué no hay más gente haciendo eso? I think that's a... Let me think that twice. There's two answers to that, I would say. One, because not everybody actually agrees that that's a good thing. And two, because not many people actually go ahead and do it. So there's a lack of interest and inaction to actually make that happen. So we need more people to want to do, right? Because it is a good thing. But some people might not think it's a good thing, but we can change their mind, right? Lo voy a traducir un poco en español. Creo que tiene dos respuestas esa pregunta. Una es que hay gente que no piensa que es algo bueno, y otra que simplemente no hace nada para que haya más. Entonces podemos cambiar eso haciendo más y tratando de cambiar la mentalidad de esas personas que piensan que no es algo bueno. Okay. Yes.
What do you think is not a good idea, or some other people don't want to do this?
I don't think he said, no creo que dijo que otros, otras personas. I don't think he said he.
But what do you mean exactly by other people?
I've met people who just don't, for some reason they don't want other people to be represented. For some reason they think they're lesser, and I don't know why that is. Sometimes I don't understand how they think, and I just like to know more about that.
Thank you.
That's a heavy loaded question because there's a lot of reasons why people might not want others to be represented. Some of that ends in a lot of isms, right? Racism, classism, sexism, isms, right? Just fill in the blank. And that's a reason why I want to exclude you. There's also a lot of power, right? And also a lot of history. We can't deny where we come from. Anyhow, I'm going to stop there. Just to say that in español, que tiene muchos isms, mucho racismo, mucho clasicismo, muchas isms, ¿verdad? Y entonces por eso hay mucha gente que no quiere incluir al otro, right? Pero que también tenemos una historia muy larga que no se puede borrar de la noche a la mañana. Toma trabajo. It takes time and a lot of work to undo what we did for many, many years, right? But this is the first step. Este es un primer paso para cambiar lo que hicimos por mucho, mucho tiempo, right? If someone doesn't take the first step, then we just keep going, doing the same thing and excluding and not, and separating and hating and you name it. You had another question.
Yes.
Yes.
I was wondering if the common theme of your projects, is it something you think about before you embark on the project, or is it something that becomes apparent when you're taking the pictures or starting on your process?
That's a great question. Dice que si el tema común de mi trabajo es algo que empieza desde antes o cuando yo empiezo el proceso. Did I translate that right? Kind of? Yeah, I think so. Okay, to answer that, I would say I'm going to go back to Riley's introduction of me, where I talk about how I always want to merge my professional life with my artistic life. So one informs the other. And because I work in the community, I'm able to connect with it and understand what are the pressing issues, because I witnessed them and I want to help. I'm going to stop right there to say it in Spanish and then finish. Voy a empezar donde Riley dijo, right? Como me presentó, que yo trabajo en la comunidad y que siempre trato de conectar mi trabajo con mi vida artística. Entonces, el trabajo informa mi vida artística porque yo estoy sumergida en la comunidad y puedo ser testigo de las cosas que son importantes para ella y ser parte de la solución. Entonces, el estar involucrada en la comunidad hace que yo me conecte con esos asuntos, entonces trate de elevarlos a través del arte. So I'm trying to connect with the issues that we're dealing with and try to elevate them through my artwork, right? So they inform each other. And sometimes they just come up out of nowhere. A veces salen de cualquier lugar. Yeah, thank you. Somebody else have a question?
I just wanted to ask, are these ongoing series that you're continuing, or like, what are you working on next?
Oh my God. So that is a great question. So my boss, who's here, Yesenia Mata, just kind of gave me my next project. Pretty much. She gave me my next project. So it is a secret for now.
Okay.
So, but it has to do with what we're living right now, right? How do we document what the community is experiencing? And I'm going to say this in español. Mi jefa, Yesenia Mata, más o menos me dio mi próximo proyecto, pero es un secreto todavía. Pero refleja un poco lo que estamos viviendo en la comunidad actualmente y es una manera de documentar y validar lo que la comunidad está viviendo actualmente. Yes.
Does your next project involve these photos that you used
That is a great question. Dice que si mi próximo proyecto involucra estas fotos, envuelve esta foto que ya yo tengo. Bueno, maybe and maybe not. I think I would know once I have the final product, how do they talk to each other. Tal vez sí, tal vez no. Creo que voy a saber cuando ya tenga un proyecto más sólido. Right now it's just an idea, and it could go very well, but it could not go well. One thing to work with community is that you need their consent. Para trabajar con la comunidad, tú necesitas que ellos quieran trabajar contigo. Tienen que tener su permiso para trabajar con ellos. And sometimes that doesn't always work out. I might have a great idea, pero ellos no quieren, they don't want to, so, yes.
I just had a question around accessibility. You know the old expression, if you build it, they will come. When you started your presentation, you started, you know, explaining how you create it and then it's here, it rises in value. But how do you, even though it's based in the community and you're talking about the community, and when you're in the community creating it there and you bring it here, how do you say now community come in and see it's here? How do you get the interest, build the interest in the community to now come?
Yes, that's a wonderful question.
Yeah.
Dr. Leslie says, how do I, dice, perdón, que cómo capturo el interés de la comunidad para que venga a este lugar a ver las obras, right? ¿Cómo los involucro en ese proceso? I think it's a great question. I think it has to do with that relationship building that I began with in the first place, where they know that this is my way of saying, you are important to me, and this is why I'm doing this. So, para decirlo en español, creo que eso empieza con la relación que hemos desarrollado a través del proceso, y es mi manera de decirle, tú eres importante para mí. Entonces, esta es mi manera de enseñarte que tú eres importante para mí. It would be my honor if you could join me. Sería mi honor si puede acompañarme. But, you know, I have some people from the community here, so maybe they want to answer that. Algunas personas de la comunidad están aquí, tal vez quieren contestar eso. Alejandra, ¿por qué estás aquí? ¿Cómo llegaste aquí? Why are you here? And how did you get here to see this work?
A mí me gusta que la comunidad se dé cuenta que con una foto podemos expresar muchas cosas.
She likes that communities can see that with a photo we can express a lot of things.
En este caso, todo lo que hemos vivido en estos últimos 3 años con la pandemia, necesitamos también sacar un poco de lo que sentimos. Si no lo podemos hablar y nos gusta expresar lo que sentimos por medio de las fotos que usted nos tomó.
She said that that it's hard to share what they've been feeling over the last 3 years with the pandemic, but they feel that this is a way of letting out a little bit of that through the photos. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Can I?
Yes.
Yeah, please.
I have been working with the community for a long time, and I don't know, since maybe 25 years. And also I do photography, and I have been exhibiting in museums and in different places. And I have been finding that even if you want to include the community, they don't necessarily are interested.
That's the point.
Exactly. And so, as when I came here, I basically there was no much community from the Mexican community. So one of my main aims was to make community. So I developed this event called the Day of the Dead Celebration, and I started making this event to bring community. And I have been doing it for 27 years. And I cannot tell you that they are always going to come, but as you get sometimes some people and sometimes you get new people, but also my main interest was to show this community to the larger community.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I wanted for them to have this interaction.
Mm-hmm.
Because as we are here as a new group of people, we don't know our larger community either.
Right.
So one of the ways that I think that the larger community can get to know us is through our traditions, through our food,
Mm-hmm.
through our music. And when we do that and they see us in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a different way of presenting the community.
Mm-hmm.
But also what I do is I have exhibited photographs, not just in museums or here or wherever, but I have shown also in the food pantry.
Mm-hmm.
The food pantry, for example, a lot of different kind of people go.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just my community, but they said when they see themselves in those pictures, they said, "Oh my God, I'm here," and other people from other ethnicities start making a connection with that photograph as well, and they will say, I mean, I didn't have anything written down, but someone told me in this photograph, this person was from Puerto Rico, and she said, in this photograph, I can relate to my grandmother because we have similar things. Even if she wasn't Mexican, she was able to share and feel that identity with that photograph. So I have been doing this for a long time, so it's very difficult to answer your question.
No.
But
I appreciate the
yeah.
answer though, because I'm always looking at, you know, we have a community here, a community here,
Sure.
a community here, in proximity,
yes,
but there's no community.
exactly.
Right?
So
How do you bridge the
yeah,
communities?
so
yeah.
in the past, there were some issues between the Black community and the Mexican community.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought of having my event in a community where it was run by Black people.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I was so enthusiastic, and I said, well, we're going to do it there. And I was expecting that more people from that community will come and join us.
Right.
But that didn't happen.
So just to
was
add a
so-
little bit on
Yeah,
that,
in the back.
just to add to that,
Yeah.
sometimes you have to meet people where they're at,
Right.
right? In addition to coming here. Just saying that you have your hands up.
Yeah, I guess to that way you said meeting people where they're at, like, I guess it was like a very interesting question, right? Like what Phil was asking. I think, can you just walk people through the process that it took you to actually be able to take these pictures? Because I know that how you said, like, in order to have access, there's certain steps that you have to take.
Absolutely. So when I started talking about the creative process, and some of the bilingual piece went out the window, but that's okay. Cuando yo hablé del proceso creativo, hablé de identificar un tema y de envolver la comunidad, pero engage the community, it's really simplified in this, right? Está muy simple, right? Engaging the community means building a long-term relationship, building trust, explaining where I'm coming from and why I'm doing this, and allowing them to say no, thank you, right? Toma tiempo llegar ahí, hay que crear un ambiente de confianza, y muchas veces la comunidad te dice no, gracias, bye bye. And the other thing is, I always try to make this accessible. So yes, we are here in the museum, But I've had exhibits at La Colmena where they go and they feel, and no one's telling them, you need to come and see this artwork. It's just there for them to see, right? Lo hemos hecho en La Colmena y la gente va y lo ve y no tiene que ser forzada a verlo. Of course, we have a formal opening. I've done this work in laundromats where people go and see the artwork there for free and no one's making them see it. But the fact that that the artwork went to them is a form of access, right? So el acceso al arte tiene mucho que ver con el espacio. The access to art has a lot to do with space, right? So where is this artwork happening? How are people getting to this? Because sometimes these walls are what preventing people to come in, right? Sometimes, a veces las paredes es lo que hace que la comunidad no entre, no llegue al arte. Entonces a veces que hay que sacarlo. You gotta pull it out of the walls, liberate it, and bring it back, right? To non-traditional art spaces. And I think that's what the difference of community engagement and community-based art, right? Where we're thinking through the perspective of the community and not so much of this very, very elitist world of the art world, which I love, but also hate, right? Es un mundo muy elitista, el mundo del arte, right? Que yo me gusta, pero también lo detesto porque excluye a mucha gente, la gente pobre, la gente que no tiene mucha cultura, no va a ir a un museo. Las paredes hacen que no entre la gente a estos lugares. El teléfono de Ale maybe is telling me that like it's time to wrap it up.
Wait, no, we have one more question.
Okay.
This young person in the Yankees cap.
Yes.
I forgot my question.
Oh no, come on, you can do it. Talk about community, access.
I'm trying to remember. I was so deep into the conversation that you were having.
Is it about community?
No, it was about the I can't remember. I'm not.
He'll remember.
It's okay.
Go ahead.
It's okay when it comes back. Well, in any case, the idea is that you guys feel inspired to maybe create new spaces of belonging. It doesn't have to be through photography. It could just be with other mediums, right? And just, you know, represent who you are and your heritage and your background. And if you can elevate other people's voices and do that, right? Because it feels good. Se siente bien. So thank you so much for coming tonight. I hope you liked it. Yes.
He remembers the question.
So yes, you something you were talking about the medium, that just reminded me of it. So I know that you're able to convey a lot through like photographs, and it means different things to everybody. But I wanted to ask, like for you personally, what kind of impact did hearing these stories and taking photographs of just moments that people really will think about for years to come, what effect did that have on you?
That was a great question. It was a great question. ¿Qué efecto tuvo las historias en mí? I think I kind of touched a lot about it a little bit. I was really moved. I was crying at sometimes in the middle of this interview. I could almost hold them through their loss, but I also laughed, and you know, it was funny. For example, in this project, in the Essential Immigrant Stories, I also interviewed children, and their story was really funny, right? One of the girls that I took a picture of was like, well, I didn't have to ask for permission to go to the bathroom. She said she, you know, that was something positive from the pandemic, right? No tenía que pedir permiso para ir al baño. So I laughed a lot. But then there was somebody that gave me a heartbreaking story about losing her mother to COVID in the hospital where she worked, and serving her and not being able to save her own mother. Like, how do you respond to that? Like, you're forever touched by this person's story, right? Una enfermera que perdió su mamá en el hospital donde trabajaba, ella atendiéndola y no la pudo salvar. I mean, it was just devastating. So there were beautiful stories, there were really sad stories that are now embedded in my fabric, right, of who I am. And I will never be able to see the people the same way again. I think that they gave me something of them. Yo me siento, I feel honored to have something so intimate and personal with me. So I think that's the impact. Like my fabric, my DNA has changed because of their stories, and they'll stay with me forever.
Nice.
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I hope you liked it.